How does Auburn's season record project for the rest of the year? Let's take a look.
In the world full of podcasts, he's the undisputed heavyweight champion of hot takes, an Auburn sports homer, master of the boog, and message board legend. Get your buttons buttoned and your hats flattened because the Top Button Podcast is about to kick off. And you don't want to miss your courtside seat. Now, here's your host, Charlie 5.
Yes, sir. We're back. It's another episode of the Top Button Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Rush, a.k.a. Charlie 5, and we're ready to get after it. After starting off with a win to kick off the season and Auburn's record projection, looking at ESPN's FPI rankings, looked really good. Now they look quite a bit different. We're going to discuss that, and do we buy some of the projections or should we sell some of them? And we'll talk about all of that. And we got some basketball news as well towards the end, and we'll jump onto all that all in just a second. But before we do that, let's give a quick shout out to rowback.com. Use coupon code BARN20 to take 20% off your order. Polos, hoodies, pullovers, shorts, pants, joggers, Auburn licensed apparel. They got it all. Look good, feel good. I love this. I love all their hoodies. I love all their stuff. So it's really, really high quality stuff. Feels good. It's very comfy, and you're going to love it. So check them out. Show them some love. Save big. It's rowback.com. Boy, it doesn't feel like it was very long ago when Auburn knocked off Baylor, and you're looking, and Auburn's projected to. When I say projected to, I'm talking about ESPN's FPI rankings. They're projected to win, I think, 10 games, with one of them being Alabama. I remember talking about how, wow, it's crazy how 1 week can change the outlook on a whole season. And how the tables have turned after the last 2 weeks. And just, I think it's not so much that Auburn lost the 2 games. I think it's just a matter of the way in which they did it, because the way that Auburn lost those 2 games and the issues that you had on offense, the penalties, the sacks, the disorganization, the inability to score. I think when you look at that and you extrapolate that over a whole season, especially against some SEC opponents, it makes the outlook feel bleak, because it seems like that's stuff that's going to be really hard to correct. So, and ESPN's rankings have taken notice as well. So let's walk through the schedule, and I'm just going to go through what the projections are, and then we'll talk about it afterwards. So obviously they have Georgia as a heavy favorite. That just is what it is. I don't know what that spread will probably come out this weekend. But they have Georgia like a 65% chance of beating Auburn. Missouri's really close. I think it's like 51%. So, I mean, I guess that one's technically a coin toss, but that one currently you'd have to say is a loss. It's 51 to 48. Arkansas, they have Auburn favored to win. Kentucky, they have Auburn favored to win. Vanderbilt, they have Vanderbilt as a big favorite to win that game. I think it's almost as big as Georgia. It's 67%. So it's honestly that's funny. I guess mostly because it's on the road. They expect those 12 to 15,000 people to just be really, really raucous, I guess. But 67% to Georgia's, I think, was like, 64%? Has to be the home thing. And then obviously Auburn's favored to beat Mercer. And then you have Alabama, who's going to be a favorite as of now when they come to town. So that would put Auburn at 6-6, which would be if that plays out that way, that would be an incredible letdown. That would be just an awful letdown based off of the hype from the beginning, from preseason. And it's, when I say hype, a lot of people put that on us, the Auburn voices, the Auburn podcasters. It's y'all's fault. Y'all lied to us. Y'all got us hype. Well, it's not just us. This was national, pretty much nationwide, and it was almost unanimous. Auburn was going to be one of those dark horse teams, and it wasn't because they were just pulling stuff out of their, you know what. It's just looking at the roster, looking down the roster, and looking at the number of high quality players that have been added over the past several years, and then the huge additions you made in the portal. Eric Singleton and Xavier Chaplin, you're talking two of the top, top 10 players available, maybe. Eric Singleton at one point was the number 1 overall player. And I think at least Eric's 1,000% been what we thought he would be. We just haven't been able to get him the ball, or haven't been able to really get into a good rhythm on offense, especially these last 2 weeks, to really get him touches. You saw how much stress he would put on a defense early, like against that Baylor game when we would run that jet sweep motion. I mean, there was nothing they could do. They had to respect it. We've somewhat gotten away from that. He's been probably the most steady of the production that we've had, most reliable guy right now. And I hate to even say that, because I don't even feel like you really know how reliable some of these guys could be, because of how much of a mess the last 2 weeks have been. So to look at the outcome from the beginning of the year to where you are now is that's a pretty stark drop off. Now, it's been pretty negative all week. All right. It's been a constant flow of, it's really been this way for like the past 2 or 3 weeks, because you've had injuries, you've had all kinds of things. But let's look at this from a more, instead of looking at everything through a negative lens, let's try to be a little bit more realistic and talk about how this season most likely could end up, and kind of talk through it. So obviously we all know something has to change on offense big time for, I think, even Auburn to get to 6-6. I don't care that Arkansas has fired almost every single coach they have on their staff. I don't care that Kentucky looks really, really bad. They're SEC opponents. And if you don't come ready to play, if you don't come with a little bit of fire, and if you come with any bit of negativity or no confidence, those are definitely losable. And if you play the offensive game you played against Oklahoma, or especially Texas A&M, I don't think any of those games are give me games, except for maybe Mercer. But I just really wonder, was the Texas A&M game the exception or the rule? I can talk myself into the Oklahoma game being a little bit better than the outcome portrayed. I think there was some issues that could have extended. Obviously, we know there were some things that could have extended drives. There were some plays to be had there that we just missed, some open throws that you missed. Whereas Texas A&M, it was a little bit more of a disaster. Oklahoma felt like we got bad breaks. Texas A&M felt like we weren't prepared. We had no clue what to do. So I think I'm until I see it one more time. If I see it one more time, I would say it's closer to the rule than it is the exception. But Hughes said something very specific in his teleconference about we've got to commit to the run, even if it's 1 or 2 yards or 2 or 3 yards, running whenever the numbers show pass. Sometimes you still got to run so you can set yourself up and make first downs easier. We're going to keep talking through this, and we're going to hit, because I think there's three games in particular, two games in particular that Auburn's not the favorite, that I think with a subtle change in philosophy, they could easily win them. We'll be back right after this. Like I said, you're going into the Georgia game. I think Georgia's going to be tough no matter what, just because they're very, very talented. But they are gettable. You saw what Alabama did to them. They're going to have, I'm sure they're going to take it all out on Kentucky. And then I think they have a big game against I think they maybe play Ole Miss after us. So could you get them they play Ole Miss after Auburn. So could you get them in a looking ahead? Probably not, just because it's a rivalry game. But a subtle change in philosophy. Hugh acknowledging that I know he said we need to run the ball, but he was never really been as specific as he was in the teleconference at 2 to 3 yards is better than 0 or negative. So sometimes we're going to have to run even if the numbers show pass. If they can do that and really build from that, like take this week and take the Georgia game, even if it's ugly, but if it's something that's sustainable and you're actually able to threaten and get field position and not just be 3 and out and you're going backwards and punting, if you're able to get some first downs, you're able to convert some third downs, move the chains and play good defense, I think everybody would feel a lot better. Missouri and Vanderbilt have made a ton of mileage off of putrid schedules. They have gotten so much mileage out of these first 5 games, and neither one of them have really played anyone. Missouri's played one conference game, against South Carolina, who I think is very similar to Auburn in being a big letdown on the year. They're not the South Carolina that's threatening to make the playoffs this year. I don't know why. They're just not very good. Outside of South Carolina, they've played Central Arkansas, Louisiana Lafayette, UMass, and Kansas. Kansas is not bad, but it's not like they're knocking off, big time competition. They've gotten that's just a ton of love, deservedly so. I mean, like, they won the games, but they're 5-0 and everybody's kind of freaking out over this team. And when you look at who they've played, it's been pretty pedestrian. They have a really good schedule, to be honest. I really like their schedule. They play Alabama before they play us. They play them at home. They got to go to Vanderbilt, play Texas A&M, and they got to go to Oklahoma. They play Mississippi State at home, which Mississippi State's pretty good, and then their last game's against Arkansas. So they got a pretty favorable schedule. I'm just not a believer quite yet on Missouri. And I think even ESPN's not quite, because it's only a 51% prediction for 51% prediction that Missouri will win that game. If you can run the ball, if you can kind of figure out something on offense, very similar to what I talked about in the Georgia game, Missouri's very gettable. I think Auburn can win that game. I think Auburn, with a Baylor mindset of patience, throw it when you need to, but be patient and wait for those no-brainer opportunities and run the dang ball. I think Missouri's very beatable. And then you got Vanderbilt. And look, this is a great story. Don't get me wrong. Love, awesome story, whatever. Very, very similar situation. They played Virginia Tech early in the year. Virginia Tech's already fired their coach. Virginia Tech lost to Old Dominion. They're terrible. They played Charleston Southern. They played Georgia State. They played Utah State, and Utah State scored 35 points on them. That's 4 of their wins right there. And then they played South Carolina, and they beat South Carolina pretty bad. But again, South Carolina's just not good this year. They're not good. They barely beat Virginia Tech with some, what was it, like a punt return and maybe a defensive touchdown or something like that towards the end of the game. Like it was an actual knockdown drag out until that. They can't score either. They're having trouble on offense, and they're supposed to have the greatest quarterback that's ever lived that gave up $22 million to play, wherever. He could have gone, he could have got drafted last year more than likely if he was eligible. They can't score. Those are 2 games that I think Auburn not only could be able to win, they should be able to win. And then obviously Arkansas and Kentucky, you just got to handle business there. But I still think, we talked about the beginning of the season that if Auburn could get to Georgia at 4-1, it could be super hype. And then if you could get to Georgia, even if you lost to Georgia, if you're 4-2, you have a really good shot to win 5 in a row. I still think that 5 in a row is on the table. Missouri, Arkansas, Kentucky, Vanderbilt, Mercer. I still think those are on the table. Your defense is too good. Your defense is going to keep you in the game. Can you just swallow your pride? Can you just play survival on offense and figure out how to move the ball by any means necessary? If you can figure that out, I think those 5 wins are still on the table. And then if you win those 5 games, who knows what happens at Alabama? So not a ton really has changed. It's just that the offense has to make some big changes or things look bleak. I don't know. Maybe I'm booging. Maybe I'm crazy, but I mean, I'm still talking. You're still talking, 8-4 more is most likely your ceiling, unless something drastic changes. So don't want to see that 6-6. If you see that 6-6, there's going to be some tough questions to be asked anyway, short of some renaissance on offense. There's going to be some tough questions that are going to be asked, and they're going to have to be answered. But at 6-6, man, it would be incredibly toxic. It would be incredibly toxic, and I don't even know what direction you go there. So let me know what you think. Let's talk basketball for a second. Big, huge news out of Pro Day. I know everybody saw it, but I want to talk about it in a little bit more detail. But Keyshawn Hall and Tahad Pettiford they're announced that they're not going to portal and they're going to come back. And that to me did not get the headlines that it should. And maybe it's because people didn't understand the real threat that these guys could go somewhere. And maybe people don't understand the significance of having a coaching change like you did and not losing a soul off the roster and not losing a soul off the staff that's been so good for multiple years. I think there were some very real concerns with both of those guys. Obviously, if you announce it after Pro Day, then you felt like it needed to be addressed because there was some chatter for both. Keyshawn Hall, he loved Bruce, man. Loved Bruce. He loved Steven, but he loved Bruce a ton. I think there was pictures of him like fishing with Bruce either the day he retired or the day after. I'm sure that was a big shock to, come to Auburn, leave your school where you're the leading scorer in the conference, come to Auburn, and then your coach is gone. And this kid is he's really good, man. From what I've heard and what I've observed in people that know basketball, he's like a 240-pound Chad Baker-Mazara. He can shoot the three. He can drive. He can get to the free throw line. Steven said he's our best player at driving and getting to the line. And I've talked about how getting to the line is a skill. It's a skill set. He's got it. So just imagine Chad Baker-Mazara at 240 pounds and not even maybe, and more athletic. That's what type of player you're getting in Keyshawn Hall. And it's huge because, excuse me, I think especially right there up until pro day, there was a little concern. There were some red flags there for a very short period of time that he couldn't maybe entertain going elsewhere. But they shut that down. Kudos to the staff. Kudos to whoever's handling his financial piece. Kudos, big shout out to them because that was a big piece of Auburn's success. That was going to be the biggest piece. I say the biggest, at least 1B. We'll say 1B as far as importance for this season. And then Tahad, the only returning player this year, he's gone he had gone completely dark. When I say gone dark, I'm not saying like he wasn't talking to anybody. I'm just saying that like you didn't hear a thing, a peep about how Tahad felt, positive or negative. He's just kind of in the dark. I think he was still working out, still practicing. Everything was good. But you had several schools that I'm sure if they had any NIL left over and any spots to give, they were calling, trying to get Tahad. You need Tahad this year to be the guy that he was off the bench full time. If you can get that guy, if you can get that killer against Michigan for a whole season, you could have something fun. So the Stephen Pearl era is off to a really good start. They had their pro day. The biggest thing out of the pro day that I loved when they had the scrimmage, and this was a combined stat so they broke teams up and scrimmaged. Their combined three-point shooting percentage was like 42%. Give me that. I love threes. Make it rain. 50-50 balls and shooting threes. Nothing better in life. So as this announcement's come out and they are really starting to get the season kicked off as far as practice goes, I'm getting more and more excited about basketball. And it's helping the shock of losing Bruce, because I think this team has a chance to be mega talented. So guys, really appreciate it. Great week. We got through the bye week, got Georgia next week. Gonna have to dig in, man. You have to dig in and get after it. So I really appreciate it. Let me know what you think in the comments. We'll talk again soon. It's another episode of the Top Button Podcast. Stay buttoned.
Thanks for listening and drive home safely.